The next book I want to talk about is an essay called The Transcendence of Ego by John Paul Sartre. Sartre begins his essay with a very radical idea. He says that the ego is not the center of the consciousness. We often believe that there is an I inside our heads that's actually guiding our thoughts and actions, but Sartre actually dismisses this idea. He says that consciousness is a state where we don't assign any meaning and we just exist. And it simply is the awareness of the world. Sartre calls this pre-reflective consciousness. Now here's where something important happens and we act. Sartre insists that we act before we assign meaning to our action. Not decide who we are first and then act accordingly, but we actually act first and then decide who we are. To put it simply, consciousness has this tendency to look upon itself and reflect. And in this reflection assigns a meaning, and here's where ego emerges. Now, when the consciousness turns back on itself, it will sound like I did this, I felt this is who I am. And this exact point is what ego is called. Now, Sartre says ego emerges in two ways. One is the I ego, and one is the me ego. And if I have to simplify it, the I ego acts and the me ego explains. So the ego does not cause the action, but it records them. And this is where the meaning comes in. Now, Sartre is a very famous existentialist, and he's known to believe that there is no pre given meaning to all our lives. But believing that, he does not push us into nihilism or say that this life is hopeless. All he's trying to say is that the meaning does not exist before the action. For example, let's say you're hungry. This hunger is a state of consciousness. Now, this consciousness makes a choice whether to eat something healthy or eat something like eat some junk food. Now, after this action is done and after the consciousness has made its choice, the ego reflects upon itself and it says something like, okay, I'm a healthy person, or I have low willpower because I ate junk food over healthy food. But that thought belongs to me, the ego in reflection. But the meaning was already in the action. This is why Sartre says we are responsible for our actions and we cannot hide behind our identity, personality, because those things come later. Now, in everyday life, we often say, you know what, I did that because that's who I am. But Sartre says it's actually in reverse order. He says that that's who I am because of what I did. This is also why Sartre believes that we are radically free because we are not trapped by our past mistakes. The consciousness is always choosing in every moment. Now, reflection is not our enemy, identity is not an illusion, but the mistake is letting ego pretend that it is the source of our action. So, for Sartre, we live first, we act first, and only afterwards we explain ourselves who we are. Now, Sartre also talks about something called as bad faith, which I will cover in my